is John. He's one of the famous luthier in Philippines. So he was the one who created this bass, and he's here today to teach us how to maintain our bass. So bass maintenance, how to fix our bass, how to set up our bass. So not only bass actually, guitars. So I'll pass it to John. Welcome to bass.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the stage. Actually, I'm not really prepared. Because I just prepared for just a few minutes to prepare this. Sorry, guys. First of all, you have to in preparation for maintenance or those and don'ts on your bass or your guitar. First, you have to consider the weather. Um, you have to where to keep your bass guitar, or don't put it in a like a hot room or very cold room, because it will affect the neck, the wood. Okay, so you have to consider a nice room temperature.
Sir, regardless of what the base is made
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
And regardless what the finish of the bass.
Yeah, regardless. Depends whether it's coated or oil finish. You put it in a room temperature. So to prevent the neck warping or whatsoever. Okay. Next is the playing style. For proper setup, example, if you're doing a finger style, it's a little bit higher than if you're doing the slap or tapping style. It's a little bit lower setup. The string height is much lower than the for the finger style, because you have to insert lot of in the finger style here. For slap, it should be lower action, so the string will bounce. Unlike if you have a higher, see the sound of the bass guitar, it's a higher action, not on the proper setup of the neck. It's like a dull sounding. See, but it's if proper. It's much the clarity is much defined. Okay, then scheduled maintenance. At least every 3 months, you have to um, check the neck or everything, like batteries, the sound of the strings. Maybe it's a little bit dull. If you're playing for a big gig, it's better to use new strings. Yeah. So to prevent unintonated sound, because it's if you use old strings, the sound it has like a what do you call it? Can I explain? Wavy sound. It waves if it's not in proper intonation. Yeah. If you usually it appears on octaves. If the other, if that's well intonated, it's like sound like this. No, well, this one is intonated. Sorry. Okay. Intonation should always be checked before playing, especially in a big gig, because you don't want to get your bandmates affected in your notes. See, if you're not at the same key, yeah. Then amplifier is also, you have to consider it in what kind of style are you playing. Example, for slap, you should use it's a must. You have a tweeter, so to define the highs. Unlike if you're just playing a finger style, it's okay without tweeter. What I'm explaining now is it's like an cables also. Even though you have a very very expensive bass guitar or electric guitar, if you don't have a nice signal,
It's a waste.
yeah, yeah, you have to consider like a coaxial cable. Use, yeah, don't use cheap cables. Okay. Schedule of changing strings. It depends on how you play. Whether you play it like 8 hours a day, especially in guitars, like 2 weeks you have to change strings because a lot of guitar player complain that oh man, you just set up this guitar but now it's the sound is worse because he plays like 4 to 8 hours a day for practice. Then the string gauge, it affects also the string gauge. That's why the sound of the strings it's not already good. That's why for guitar players that plays a lot, you have to change like 2 weeks. For the bass player, at least 2 months. If you're playing every day, but
Every
if
2
not,
months. Every 2 months we should change.
yeah, you have to
If you're
change
playing every day.
if you're playing every day. But like every 3 days, and
Mawas gig.
yeah, like 6 months is okay. 6 months okay, and you have to don't use a solution to clean your strings. Just dry cloth is okay. And also,
How about the body po? Can we use any solution to
it depends. For example, if you for the body, if you're it has a like urethane coat, it's okay if you put like other solution. But for oil finish, you should what is recommended in the base, like for example using a wire wick. They sell also this wax that for maintenance. Okay. Batteries is also important. Don't ever forget to unplug the cables because this one has a switch inside. Then if you plug it, the battery is on. Whether you have the active passive switch, it's still working. So changing of batteries, for example, like EMG, max is 3 months. Then you have to replace. You don't want your battery, yeah, will have this oxidized thing in your battery. So if leakage is you have to prevent it because especially the batteries is installed here. The preamp will get this chemical from the batteries, so you have to change it like 3 months. Yes, sir.
What if I will not be using my active bass for quite some time? Do you recommend me to take out the
Yeah,
batteries
you have to
first?
take out the batteries. You have to take out the batteries if you're not using really the preamp. Mhm.
Do you recommend rechargeable batteries?
No, I wrote it here because
NO, it says NO.
no, no to rechargeable batteries because it fluctuates.
So we just use
Fresh.
fresh batteries every time?
Alkaline.
Alkaline.
Yes, alkaline and wood.
Alkaline tree. Any brand you recommend?
And always have your guitar or bass guitar checked every 3 months with of course with trusted luthier here in Singapore or which place is that? Trust. There's a question about truss rod adjustment here. Okay. Truss rod also affect the intonation of bass and guitar because it's a little bit of mathematics here. So I need supposedly I need a blackboard or whiteboard to explain it. Okay, but now.
There's a piece of paper.
Okay. But it's okay. It's okay. Sorry, guys. It's just a few inputs that maybe that can help you guys. example, this is the neck. Side view.
You want to stand up to see?
This is the nut. Yes, strings. The proper relief for the strings to the bridge. This is the frets. From the nut, okay. Should be uniform with the first. See that the relief here from the top of the frets to the bottom of the strings, almost the same until here. That's a proper setup. Usually, the nut height should be the same. But you can see the space here, the top of the fret and the bottom of the strings, almost the same. It's a proper setup. So this is also imaginary frets, imaginary fret actually. The nut, it should be the same. Should be the same. See, because it also affect the sound of your slap, especially slap. If you have not that it's the space between the strings and the frets is very high. It also affect the sound for the slap. The strings doesn't respond nicely because of because of the height. So it should be example, you're playing, you don't have a good gear around your area, so you use a sandpaper carefully. You have to file down the nut here. The nut is the nut. This is the slot of the nut. You have to carefully sand this if you don't have a nut file. Here, you just fold the sandpaper so you can sand it down like this. The proper height for the strings and the nut should be, this is your reference. For example, you have to fret the first fret. Then example, this one. You have to press it, then you can see the space between the frets and the strings should be the same here. Should be the same. So you have to sand it down. That's a proper setup for nut. Okay. For the bridge setup, should be the depends on what kind of playing do you play. Example, for slap bass, usually at least 1/4 of 1 inch or 1/8 of an inch. It's the proper setup for that. Sorry, it's not 1/4. It's 1/8. You should check the bottom of the strings and the top of the fret. That's a proper height for slapping. And for the finger style, I can say it's okay if I on millimeters.
Sure.
For millimeters at least, 4 mm. Yeah, same as one, almost same. Almost same, yeah.
Where do we measure the 4 millimeters?
The top of the fret and the bottom of the
At
string.
the
Yeah.
last fret that we have on the...
Yeah. Not on the top of the strings. It should be on the space between. Okay. What else?
It's the same from the treble to the bass strings.
At least the same. At least the same. It should be uniform. You should also consider the ranges of the fretboard. Example, this is the ranges. And this is for strings. Actually, eye adjustment. Usually, this is an eye adjustment. You have to measure here.
For every string.
Yeah,
For every string, you have to measure.
you have to measure it. The bottom of the string and the top of the fret. Usually, this is the distance.
Regardless of the thickness of the string, the measurement of the top of the fret to the bottom of the string should be uniform.
Yeah, it should be uniform.
So next question will be, what is the best setup for the string and pick up height?
It depends on what kind of magnet do you have.
Yes.
If you use a high
High.
magnet, you should actually Lindy Frown explained it that there is no really measurement between the pickups and the strings. You can check it on YouTube because you have to consider the power of the magnets. Because if the example for like Music Man, it has a big alnico
Right.
magnets. See the
Yeah.
space is very big, so the power of the magnets is very strong. So you have to the setup is much
Lower.
farther than the string, lower. So to prevent that, so you can have a much sustain. If you have a smaller alnico, near the string is okay. This is okay. It's also okay. Actually, it depends on your ear. It's David Frown explained it. Next.
How about changing of the strings? Should we change one at a time or?
Yeah, good question. Actually, changing strings, especially if there is no luthier around, it's better if you change the string one by one. What I mean is like,
Yes.
if you
One at a time.
yeah, if you take out these strings, put another string, then tune it to what you're tuning, like standard example, then remove the second string, so on so on.
But shall we loosen it, loosen everything and then remove one by one, or still the same tuning and then?
This is example in this bass, you have to remove the B, then change it and tune, then the E. Don't remove all the strings because the neck will warp. So it's hard for you to readjust if you don't know how to adjust the truss rod.
Same with guitars.
Same with guitars, especially Floyd Rose. Because Floyd Rose is that's a floating bridge, so you don't want to readjust, especially if you don't know how to adjust the truss rod. Yes, sir.
Does that mean that if you're not using your bass for like 6 months, 7 months, it's not advisable to remove the strings?
No. don't do that because like example, if you don't want to use your bass guitar for like 6 months, don't remove or loosen the strings because the truss rod has a load. So if you remove that, the neck will convex. It's convex. You're like doing a permanent molding on your neck. So if you put a string, maybe it will go back to its proper setup.
Example that happened, so your neck is now convex, right? Is it advisable to like put a load on the reverse side so it would straighten up, or?
No, usually depends actually on the wood. Sometimes it doesn't come back to its proper relief. But don't do that. If you want to keep your bass,
Just keep the strings.
yeah, put the string and same tuning. That's what you do then.
Don't loosen the
Don't loosen the strings.
In short, don't do anything.
Yeah, don't.
Should we keep in the bag? Keep in the bag or?
Maybe you have to keep it on a proper room.
Don't do anything.
Then put a bubble wrap and silica gel so it can absorb the moist.
Sir, my bass is always in a soft case.
Mm.
Is it okay?
Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, it's okay if you have to put absorbent silica gel inside.
Silica or
So
humidifier.
especially if you're
Humidifier.
this kind of studio is very cold, the moist is going to your base. Especially if you have an oil finish, it will absorb the moist. It will affect the neck.
You're warming.
No solutions on the
Oil finish usually.
Can I use lemon oil and juice?
Yes.
Lemon
Yes.
oil.
Lemon oil.
Okay.
But don't put it
Then switch
on a maple kind of fret.
Maple. Can
Yeah.
I use?
Don't use solution on maple because usually it's coated.
Cloth lang, dry.
Dry cloth is okay.
So,
You can put lemon oil and rosewood and like ebony is okay.
But
Bow
for the
feathers.
strings, can I use lemon oil? To clean?
No.
Can I use WD-40?
In a string, if it's like for example, you have this the strings now set up on your bass, and you want to re-oil the fretboard. Cover your strings with plastic first. Yeah, you have to like this because oil will stuck in between the wound of the strings. It will dull the sound. So, yeah, for example, this one. You have to put it plastic before applying oil. Then on the second fret, same. Then on the other side. Don't put oil on your strings. Okay. Can also clean your strings with alcohol, denatured alcohol. Any fast drying solution is okay.
For minor rust, question. Minor rust, what you suggest?
Minor WD-40. No, for the strings or hardware.
For like pickup.
Yeah, okay. You can use a WD-40, but dump it on earbuds.
Oh.
Okay, just spray it in a small can. Then you have to dump it a small WD-40 or rust remover. Then, example here, it has a rust here. Don't use a WD-40 that will flow into the coil. Maybe it will destroy your coil. Okay, just on the top. Then wipe it without drying. Buds. And don't like that. Don't do that in your bass. This one is a big no-no because there's a powerful magnet. It will demagnetize your pickup.
Oh, in front of the speaker.
Yes, don't do that. It's a big no-no, especially if you have Alnico magnets because Alnico is not a permanent magnet. Like this. It's okay for now, but don't do that always. Because Alnico magnet is not a permanent magnet unlike neodymium that the Fender used today. It's a permanent magnet, rare earth magnet.
Especially between sets, let's say in a gig, don't put your bass
Yeah,
in front
of the
resting at
speakers.
the amp. Don't do it.
What would happen if it demagnetized with the sound like
That sound will go thin. It will not be same uniform sound from high to low because some of the magnets will get demagnetized, or maybe the polarity will reverse. That's why some of us complain why my C sound is not same as the B. See? Okay.
So, what can you say about boiling strings?
boiling with vinegar, right?
Actually, if you're like buy and sell, it's okay. But don't use that for a gigging musician or professional musician. Don't do that because it's a temporary relief. Like during putting your mouth, if you have a pain reliever. It's not a solution actually. A temporary solution.
Pinakulola, lagyan ng sibuyas sa
For example, you have a gig tonight, but the store is closed. You have to boil it. It's okay. But tomorrow you have to change a new sets of strings.
Some say boil it in vinegar, is that correct? Or some actually say that.
Yeah, adobo. If you have it's better if you use a denatured alcohol. You have to put it like 10 minutes, then dry it down.
So boil it in alcohol?
No. You have to clean it in alcohol. So fast drying. It will not in between the wound. The wet something will not stuck there. It will not build up as a rust.
Yeah, but if you're using elixir string,
Yeah.
based on experience, don't boil it.
And you
Yeah.
can buy from
It
Jerome.
will brittle. It will brittle the string.
50%.
Boiling strings is just a temporary solution. Okay, not a permanent. You have to change strings. depends on the reference of your ear.
What about the intonation, the distance of the bridge to the
Okay, intonation. Yeah, I can actually remember everything. Okay. Intonation, don't use a ruler. Because some of the luthier use a ruler from 0 to 12. Actually, it's just a reference, but for accurate sample, this is your tuner. This is the intonation, sample E. For open tuning like this, sample open, then it's tuned here, correct? 0. Then if you put it on the 12th fret, the octave, and it goes like sharp, like this. This is the sharp part. This is the flat. Example, the meter goes here on the 12th fret. You have to move your, okay, this is the bass guitar. It's the bridge. Just to adjust when this is sharp and this is flat. Example, it goes here. The saddle should go there. Okay?
Sharp.
Sharp, yeah. You have to tighten the screw of the saddle so it move this way. If it goes flat,
move forward?
yeah, move forward. So you have to do it with trial and error. Actually, you have to adjust little by turn the screw bit by bit. Okay. And you have to intonate your bass or guitar. You should intonate it with new sets of strings. Don't use old strings, okay?
Anything?
Yes, sir.
How about, putting foil inside the cavity of the electronic ground, would that really work?
No. You should use copper foil or carbon paint or aluminum foil. But it will not work if you don't put a wire. Example, this is your cavity. Okay. This is your cavity, then you're using a single coil pickups. If you have time and you do it like a weekend hobby, example, you have a single coil. You have to remove first the cover of the like jazz bass and put copper coil here around and prevent. Don't put there's usually the connection to positive and the negative. Don't put a coil there. Aluminum foil, so because prevent ground. You should maybe grounding the two wires. For the cavity, if you like put aluminum foil or copper foil, you have to put a ground wire and cover it and connect it to the ground of your electronics, like that. Without putting a ground wire, your it's useless.
So mentioning the ground wire, it's just the jack, right? The ground, the jack, would that work?
Usually you can see it in the volume pod. The wire that's
Connected on the body itself?
yeah, it's all ground. You have to connect it here.
Can we connect that wire to the
Jack.
wire from the bridge?
Yeah, you can also connect it on the wire from the bridge because also a ground wire.
Last question. You said that you can do that on single coils, right? Would that work on like humbuckers?
Yeah, it's much better if you also put it on the humbucker, so it's like zero noise on your bass guitar. It's much better if you have the all this aluminum foil or copper coil.
That's it. Any
Any
questions?
questions? Question?
Guitarist now.
Drummer.
type of wood, electronics, hardwares, like making custom of a car. Depends on what brand you're
Like how
putting.
much is that?
Yeah, normally.
Custom.
This one.
Next one.
This one, usually. Usually, this kind of bass guitar, if you order it in like the
Boutique shop in the US.
boutique shop in the US, it will cost you, the lowest is like $6,000 up. But in the Philippines, it's very low price. Same wood, same hardware, same as the
High end.
high end,
Same standard.
same standard, same wood, same everything, just made by Filipinos. I usually did takes like around 3,000 to 4,000 Singapore. Yeah. Same as the like 6,000 up custom.
So it's 50% off.
Yeah, almost 50% off. Yeah, you can design your own shape, the size of the neck.
You make your own preamp and
Yeah.
preamp
I
and
also make my own
pickup.
preamp and custom pickups. Depende what kind of playing you have. Like fingerstyle, we have same, different wires that we use on fingerstyle and slap.
If I want both finger style and slap.
Yeah, I can design them. But of course, different price and everything can be custom.
Is it cheaper if you do acoustic bass than electric bass?
No, acoustic is
More expensive.
more expensive because we don't use plywood. We use solid wood that's hand bent. Actually, almost the same, but not really. Almost the same. Depends, of course, of what kind of wood you use on the top, side, and back. Exotic wood is much expensive than regular woods.
Do you have any portfolio for the wood that we can use?
Yeah. Think
Right.
what wood do you want? You can order them.
Can you get like quotations and such?
Yeah.
Later you can
PM.
All wood is available. It depends on your budget.